Hi everyone, welcome back to the Reclaimed Ranch. My name is Tara. Today we're going to be working on some wooden items that I have thrifted. I found this old masher and the price tag had $4.99 on it. However, it was a 50% off day. So that was a yes in my factor, and it went right into my basket. So it has that big crack. We're going to be using Star Bond Quick and Thick to repair those cracks. They do make clear, and they also make darker colors. So if you have like a dark table or something, or piece of furniture that you have a crack and you need to fix, this is a great way to do that. My little tip is super glued onto the top, so I just am using my little popsicle stick to help put the Star Bond down into that crack. And I'm going to do a couple different layers. I'm going to do this one first, and then I'm going to use my accelerator to quickly harden that glue. And then once that's hardened, I'm going to go back in, do another layer until that glue is completely sticking above the wooden surface. And that way I know it's completely full. And then I'm going to actually let that go ahead and sit, even though it's completely cured. I'm going to let it sit overnight just to be on the safe side. And then I will use my orbital sander to sand away the excess glue and leave just the finished crack. So here's the next day. I'm going to go in with my 220 grit sandpaper. You can see there's a lot of glue sitting on that side there. And I ended up just sanding the entire thing. So I'm going to sand it all the way down to the crack again. And I'll show you at the end, it's actually completely filled in. So that's what I love about this glue, is that you can really save a lot of pieces if they are cracked. Even like wooden bowls, things like that, you can make them have character with the crack using that darker glue. And so that's the fun thing about this, is that you don't have to throw something away even though it has a crack. You can save it, refinish it, and even though you might not want to use it for food again, you can at least use it for your home decor. So I've cleaned it all up, and here you can see that crack is completely filled. There's a couple little bubbles in there, but I just added a little bit more glue to each of those and filled those in. And then I'm going to go in with it's called Booze Block Mystery Oil. I bought this at Windsor Plywood, and it's specifically for butcher blocks and wood pieces that you're going to be using around food. So in case somebody does want to, I am putting this oil on there to soak into the wood and preserve that. So the second project is a wooden cutting board, and it was priced at $2.99. Again, same store, half off. And the reason I bought it, you see all this glue here, it had a super cool old vintage grater on there, a round one. And so that caught my eye, and I wanted to be able to list that on my website. So I am going to go in, whatever glue they used, it was super, super good, because even with my heat gun, it took quite a while to scrape all that glue off of there. I loved the color of this side of the board, and it looks like they were trying to hand paint a pumpkin or something on the other side, but Because of the glue, I had to go ahead and just use my 120 grit sandpaper, sand it all down, completely down to bare wood. And it was a really soft wood, so I didn't really want a light stain on there. I wanted to kind of go back to the dark stain again. I did go ahead and do both sides with the 120, and then I used a 400 grit net sanding paper to really smooth out all of the lumps and bumps on there. And then I am going to be using my own little antiquing wax mixture. So I put antiquing wax, water, and a little bit of black paint as desired for color. And I mix that all together, and it makes a beautiful stain without all the odors and things like that. So here's that sanding net, and I'm just going in and smoothing out all those really rough edges and just making it nice and smooth. So when I go ahead and do the stain, I do one coat with the antiquing wax, and then you'll see that I'm going to go in, and I liked the really nice brown tone I got from that. But I wanted a little bit more of a vintage old look. And so what I did was I took some of Fusion's Coal Black and I watered it down really well. And then I used a paintbrush and just put a coat of the black on there and then instantly wiped it back. And that got the black down in the little grit areas and just made it look a lot older. And I just absolutely love how it turned out.
Headlights on the highway. If you only knew, being back here always makes me think of you. When the world is sleeping, do you think of me? With the road ahead's coming back again, coming back to me. I remember the long drives, the late nights in your car. I remember it all. Windows down, empty streets, you were all I used to know. You and I, forever, forever ago. And you used to drive me home. Now I drive alone. You and I, forever, forever, forever ago. This town's so quiet, this time of year. With the road ahead's coming back again, coming back to me.
So this third project is a little wooden box that has a clock face on it. I thought it was super cute, and I love the hardware on it. And so I originally wanted to keep the clock in there, but when I was trying to take it out, it actually broke into a ton of pieces. That piece there went flying across the room. And so I said, well, okay, let's go to plan B. So we're going to pull out some IOD molds, and we're going to use some casting resin, and we're going to cover up that hole. So you can see I had to even chisel out a piece of plastic on the top there. And so I went ahead and just removed all the hardware and got that all cleaned up. And then I'm going to be using the amazing casting resin. And that's the resin that actually sets up in like 10 minutes. It's that white colored resin. So you got to kind of work fast with it. But I love that you can still, it's when you pull the resin out of the mold, it's still pretty pliable, and you can kind of still maneuver it around. Even if you heat it up a little bit, it'll become a little bit even more pliable. So that's what I like about this. It was I was able to kind of mold it to that hole and get it to stay where I wanted it to stay. Now, because of this really dark cherry color on the wood, I really didn't know which way I wanted to go with this as far as painting it. I originally thought I was going to go with a lighter color, And so I ended up using DIY's Salvation Solution, which is a product that helps with bleed through. And I put 2 coats of that on, and it worked really well. But then I ended up changing my mind in the end, and I went with the dark color, so I probably didn't really need this step. So this is the IOD mold called Roses. It has some really beautiful molds of different rose type flowers. And so the clear casting resin, you just do 1 part A, 1 part B. You mix those 2 together for probably a good 30 seconds to a minute. You don't have a whole lot of time to mix because it sets up so fast, but it'll turn cloudy, and then once it turns clear again, you're ready to go. So try not to mix too awful fast, otherwise it does do a lot of bubbles, and then you want to make sure to scrape down the sides. And then I'm just going to pour it into the mold that I really, really want first, and then I had a little bit extra, so I'm going to go in and just pour some leaves. That way I can kind of add some more depth and dimension to it. And then I'm going to just let that set up, which takes less than 10 minutes. You can already see it's starting to turn white. It works really fast. And then once that's set up, I'm going to go ahead and pull those molds out. And I'm just going to place them on that hole to see exactly how much, if I need to make more leaves or roses, to see how much coverage I have. And it actually worked out pretty good. The main rose was huge, so it took up most of the dimension of it. And then I did just go in with these leaves here and kind of put them underneath the rose. And it actually worked out to be just about perfect. You can see there's a couple little holes, so I'm just going to cut those little, while it's still pliable, you can cut these up any which way you want. And then I'm going to just kind of place them where I want them. I'm going to go use my Titebond Quick and Thick glue, which I absolutely love. I'm going to glue it down, and I didn't have painter's tape, so I ended up using masking tape, which I wouldn't really recommend doing because it did pull off some of that Salvation Solution. So I'm going to go in with my Fusions Manor Green, and I love this color. Such a rich green, forest green color. And I'm going to do 2 full coats of that. Let those dry in between each of them. And then I'm going to be using, on that rose mold, I'm going to be using the Rub and Buff in the color Vintage Gold. And I'm going to highlight that rose as well as some of the edges of this box. And I also redid all of the handles and hardware in the vintage gold color, and you guys, this turned out so pretty. So after rubbing my finger across the top part of the rose here, I wanted a little bit more gold to pop on that. So I just grabbed a little artist brush and went in and filled in some of the areas that I thought could use some more gold hints with that. And I think it turned out great. You'll have to let me know what you guys think. So the final project for today is another cutting board, but this one I'm going to keep for myself. I found this at the Goodwill bins. It's a Pioneer Woman cutting board, obviously well used. So I did use an 80 grit sandpaper to kind of get down to the nitty gritty of all those knife cuts in there and those black spots, and really worked it back and forth until I got most of those out. Then I moved up to the 120. Now with this part, I wanted to keep that decoration in there, so I just barely went over the edge of that, obviously because that doesn't get used as far as being cut, but the finish was coming off. So I just barely touched it, just took that finish off. And then same with the bottom, just enough to get the finish off. And I went up to the 120, and then I went to 220, and then again the 400 net sanding, and until it was all nice and smooth and in great condition. No cut marks left on it, things like that. So once that was done, I did go back and I just cleaned it off really well with a wet towel and let it dry. And then I went back in with my butcher block cleaner and oil. And oil, put quite a bit on there. I let it sit overnight to soak into the wood. And this turned out so beautiful, so beautiful. So this is just getting it wet with the rag, but you can see how much color and depth that wood has. It's so pretty. And I love it. I have it sitting in my kitchen, and I love this type of wood that has the lights and the darks and everything in between on it. And look at that color, you guys. It just pops it right out. It's so pretty. Love it. But yeah, you can use like hemp oil. There's a lot of products out there that you can buy to help re-oil your butcher blocks and keep them nice and moist so they don't crack. So this is probably one of my favorites. It wasn't as hard to do, but I love the functionality of it now. I have a new butcher block, and it's super pretty. So let me know what you guys think is your favorite for this week. And I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next Monday with some more thrift flips. And in the next coming months, I'm planning on redoing my bedroom upstairs into an English garden bedroom. So I'm going to take you on that journey with me, and we get to make over the entire bedroom. I'm going to repaint it. I've got an antique bedroom set that's going to get redone, and so that should be fun. And I'm curious to know what you guys think, if that's something that you would be interested in watching. So take care, y'all, and we'll see you soon. Bye.